Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police for the town, and we are 10-8 and in service, which means we're here to safeguard the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. And we do that in an effort to make people's lives better. I actually have a lot to share with you tonight, so I hope you stay tuned for all of it. The one thing I'm going to cover at the very end is how do we actually come up with a speed limit? We had some conversation online, and I want to kind of go over that, but as always, this is a live show, so if you have questions, just go ahead and ask them right here in the chat, and I'll do my best to monitor it, and if it's something I can answer during the chat, I'll go ahead and fire off the answer. If not, I'll do some research later, and I'll type it into the chat. Usually if I answer it live during the show, I don't usually go back and redo the chat, and so that's why I'd say if you're wanting the information, it's really good to remind folks to just watch the entire show. That's where you'll get the answers for all your info. But really, if you want to take a detailed look at what it is we do, we've still got positions open for our Citizens Academy. It's coming up. We're going to be starting in September, so we're starting in about a month, and it's a good time. And if for anything else, let's just go check out that sheriff's helicopter. I mean, that thing is shiny and nice. But it's a good chance for you all to get a deep look as to what we do here, but then also give us the feedback and tell us what you would like to see us do differently, better, or the ways that we can improve on how we provide services to both prevent crime in town and solve crime once it's committed. There's also an opportunity for you to make Danville safer. Still open, local roadway safety plan. You can go on there and you can drop a pin or identify an area that you would like to say, make this a better place. And I do want to share one thing with you. And if you haven't signed up for it, what I would say is go on to either the App Store or onto the Google Play and download the Danville Connect app. It looks just like that. And I'm going to have a nice video for you here. Let me see if I can get that up. But I want you to see, earlier today on the way to work, a friend of mine said, there's a traffic problem. We can't make this left turn and we need to be able to do this. And so he sent me a picture of what he saw, and I was able to get that right over to the transportation manager, Andy Dillard, and he immediately got signal maintenance out, and they worked on correcting the problem. Essentially, it was on Diablo Road, and the left turn light, the turn arrow, was not cycling properly, and so he got them to come out and diagnose the problem. But I want to show a video because it reminded me, all of you can make these reports directly to where they need to go. And you don't even really, you can actually mess up the entry. You can put it in the wrong area and it will still go to the right person. But this is how you would do an entry. And this is what I did for this one is I start by clicking the start request, and then I scroll all the way down until I find the one I want. And frankly, again, if you didn't get the right category, so if you didn't choose traffic signals and say chose parking, I would still send it over to Andy Dillard. Select a photo that you'd like to use. That's the photo I attached. And then what you want to do is you want to write a little note as to what is going on. Because although a picture says 1,000 words, just give us a few more. In this case, I pulled over to the side of the road, so I wasn't quite at the location. So I recentered the map to make sure that they knew exactly where the problem was. And then I just typed in there that the left turn arrow was not working. And once you get that in there, it'll go, and it'll go to Laurel saying, mention it last night. Oh yeah, Laurel is here. Perfect. And so then what you do is you want to try to do your best to select the categories, but again, not a big deal. If you get some things wrong, it's going to go to a live person. And the great thing is once you submit it, you'll get a little ticket number. Usually you'll get like an email that'll say, hey, thank you for submitting this. And then you can actually go back and you can check on your submission. So let's look at some of my old ones real quick. A little bit on the tech support IT stuff heavy, but if you can see, there's one here for some graffiti. And so I had filled this one out, and the very same day on the 17th or the 27th? I have bad eyes. On that very same day, I received information back from the maintenance person that actually corrected it. So that's pretty darn good service. That's ran by our maintenance department, since a lot of the service requests will go to maintenance for potholes, street lights, signal lights. But some of them will spill over into other departments, and we'll take care of those. So Danville Connect is a great resource. It has direct links to our town council, our activity guides. It's an all things Danville app. It's a very good app, but I use it a lot for reporting things and making sure that Danville stays beautiful, and I would encourage you all to do the same. All right. Again, we're plugging these hard, especially during these fires. And I don't know if anybody saw, but that Dublin fire a couple of days ago was could have been pretty scary, right? It was very fast moving. Kudos to Alameda County Fire and Dublin PD and all of the first responder agencies that went out there, because they really did knock that down and get a handle on it. But when we looked at the alert wildfire cameras, you could see the smoke was actually going sideways. And so that reminded me that it's very important for us to remind all of you to stay prepared. And how you can do that is download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. That will show you what you can do to prepare now, how to survive during, and then what you can do afterwards. Also, log into and sign up for our community warning system through the sheriff. This is how we're going to make notifications in addition to Nixle. And then also download the wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. One of our lieutenants, actually the chief over in Lafayette, Ben Aldrett, was pretty instrumental in working with La Miranda Fire and creating and producing that document. It's a very good document, and you can't go wrong by just downloading it, give it a review, take a look at it, and just chuck it in a drawer, and you will absolutely be a little bit more mentally prepared, and you'll have some tips on what you can do to be physically prepared should something bad happen. Okay, so I'm going to check the chat real quick. I've got a lot of hellos. Lou, good seeing you on here. Laurel, glad to see you could make it. And Darcy says, it's nice to text photos of other issues to the city. Yeah, and so Darcy, you can send those. It's great. It's great for us because then we can actually see what it is, what the problem is. A lot of times if someone would report that there's graffiti on the corner of Greenbrook and Camino Ramon, we don't actually know what we're looking for. But if you take a picture of like a signal box or a sprinkler valve cover or something that has it, it's going to be a lot easier for us to find it and correct it. And a lot of times report it to the right people, right? If it's an AT&T building or a box, or if it's an HOA, then we know to contact that HOA and let them know that it's their property that's been vandalized and to fix it. So that is a good resource. All right, let's move on to our crime map, the blotter. So communitycrimemap.com, just a reminder, it has changed a little bit. Some of the icons are a little bit different and how you access it is different. So if you have trouble looking at it, feel free to connect with us and we will help you through it. Part 1 crimes, not horrible, not bad, no violent crimes. That's a good thing, but we did have 7 thefts, primarily catalytic converter thefts. We did have, on August 9th, we had a petty theft from CVS, and I'll go over that a little bit more after this slide. On the 10th, we had 2 catalytic converter thefts, one from Old Orchard, one from Princeton. On the 12th, we had a package theft on Redtail Court. And then on the 13th, we had a catalytic converter thefts on New Boston, Jewel Terrace, and Indian Home Road. All right, August 9th. This was actually pretty cool. We talk about our automated license plate camera system. We talk about how it surrounds the entire town, and then we've got it on certain central locations where we were able to shrink the town. That system does take pictures of license plates in the public area on the roadway, and it will read the plate, and it'll tell us if the vehicle is wanted for certain types of crimes, like stolen cars, if it's a felony wanted vehicle. It'll also let us know if it is suspected of a crime, so we can enter a hot list. And so we get these flyers from all over the Bay Area, actually all over the state at times, that will tell us a crime just occurred, and this is the vehicle associated with it. And what we can do is we can put that plate in. So sure enough, we get our officer sees that a car had come into town that is known for stealing from drugstores. So he goes and he checks the 2 drugstores parking lots where they're at, finds the car, and by the time he finds the car, he actually sees the lady coming out with the stolen merchandise kind of in her hands. So he's able to make the stop on her and ends up arresting her. So very good case. And it's just a good example of the tools that we have in the way of prevention for the community. And that's how we try to prevent crime from happening. That one, we were maybe just a little bit behind, but ultimately we're able to stop that person and let them know that Danville is not the place to do that. All right. I also have a video. This is where, we talk about information release. We talked about it last week that we have an initial release. Then we have the investigation, which we don't do the play-by-play. So if we were to have like a stolen car, we would say, hey, we had a stolen car on the 10th, and this is, we may even give a call to action. We're looking for this person, or if it's if we're aware that a certain car is being targeted, we might say, if you have an F-250 Ford, be aware that we notice an increase in those. So there may be a call to action associated with it. Then there's that middle part where there's an investigation where we don't release information. We don't give the play-by-play like you see in like a football game where the announcer says he's at the 45, the 40, the 35, the 30. That's what you see in a movie or a TV show. We just don't do that. We can't compromise the investigation. We have to act on behalf of our victim. And then when the case is done, and if there's in custodies and people that have had charges filed on them, then we would release that information. And that is right in line with our policy. But in this case, this is one of those call to actions on that package theft. We're actually asking for your help. And so this is where we release a video and we show you the video that we have from the homeowner. So kudos to the homeowner for having a video. They're taking their personal safety in their own hands and they're taking an active role in it. So kudos to them. And so what I'd ask you to do is just watch this video and let us know if you can identify this person that came up and stole the packages. So somewhat distinctive pants. I'm going to pause the video there. You can see he's got long shorts on with some stripes on it. He's got a red face covering and a ball cap. And so you can see the face covering looks kind of like a very large face covering. And then let me play it back a little bit so you can see it, see how the person walks. So if you can identify this person, again, we would ask that you do not put the name in the chat. But if you know who the person may be that stole the package on Redtail Court, that you call and let us know. And again, you can call us, you can send us a private message, you can email me directly. Anyway, but again, we treat everyone with dignity and respect, and so we ask not to put the name in the chat. And that's, frankly, what if it's the wrong name, right? Like that would be pretty embarrassing. So if you know who that person is, go ahead and let us know. I'm going to jump into the chat here and see. Okay, so Darcy says, can you talk about the zones many fire evacuations are using now? Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Kind of do this on the fly. So what Darcy's talking about is called Zonehaven, and you can go to Zonehaven Aware is what it's called, and it's the public facing side. And what that'll do is that'll let you know where there we go. And that'll let you know where your zone is. It is one way that we can push information out. I have to accept all the cookies before it'll let me put this up here. So it's one way that we can push information out, but it's not the only way. This is actually the back end of what we would use. Let me pull one of them up here. Okay. All right, so let me put this up. Okay, so this is what Zonehaven looks like. This is the public facing side. There really isn't much to this when there isn't an incident going on. But if we were to evacuate zones, so if we felt that there was an emergency and there is not an emergency, I'm just using this as an example, and we were to do evacuation orders for the west side of Danville, we would do it based on these zones, most probably, especially for a swift moving fire. And what you would see is you would see these zones light up different colors. If they were being under an evacuation warning, they would turn amber, and if it was an evacuation order, they would turn red. And then it would be green if we were allowing people back in. And so you can see this one is a west side Danville area of Monterre and portions of Del Amigo neighborhoods. Includes Monterre Drive, Costa, Hilford, and Sky Terrace. That is kind of the perimeter of it. And then if there were a school or something, there would be some information in there for law enforcement as well. It's good for us because what it does is it standardizes the language and streamlines the process. So if we were to have an event, I could simply say, evacuate Danville Zone 5, Danville Zone 7, Danville Zone 2. And our dispatch could tell our community warning system partners, these are the zones, and it's much quicker, much quicker. Before, I would have to plot an area on a map, maybe do a radius, or maybe give them the streets, but it would take planning on the fly. And so this is one of those things that we can plan ahead of time and we can use, and we can split these zones if we need to. And then if it's a much smaller area, say if it's more of a hazmat situation where we think it's contained to a smaller area, we wouldn't even use Zonehaven. We would just identify those areas and do the evacuation. So that is Zonehaven Aware. So if you want to know your zone, you can go to Zonehaven Aware. Let's see if I can get my PowerPoint back up here. So that was the Zonehaven. And then Archie says, FYI, enter 94568 for Nixle alerts in Dublin. So Archie, that's a good point. So anybody that hasn't, if you're watching this on your phone right now, maybe wait till you're done. But if you're watching on another device, what you can do is you can go to a text screen, and in the top portion where you'd normally type the 2 button, just type it 2888777. And when you have it in there, you can actually type any zip code that you want. So for me, of course, I have all of Danville. I have all of San Ramon because we're good partners there. And then I have our Alamo, I have Walnut Creek, Pleasanton. So the areas where I think if there's a significant event, it may affect us, I put them in there. And then you can also put family members areas in there as well. And so long as the agencies in that area subscribe to that, you will get updates for that. All right. Okay, so Sue says, how long does the academy last and how many days are involved? And what Sue is asking is specifically about the Citizens Academy. It's 7 weeks long, and there's 2 Saturdays mixed in, so there's a total of 9 classes. But I'll tell you what, the first class is probably the most boring because it's a lot of talking, a lot less interactive. It's kind of the get to know you class. But what we hear from most of the people that have had this class is as you get ahead of steam rolling and you get to that 5th and 6th week, people are wanting to add days to it. So 7 weeks seems like a long time, but it's 1 Wednesday a week, and you go for about 3 hours, 6 to 9 o'clock at night, and it's a good time. We'll even throw some snacks and drinks on the table, non-alcoholic drinks. And so a good endorsement by Lou Plummer. Thank you for the Citizens Academy. And Darcy, good job. Yeah, Zonehaven is the name. Eric, we'll make sure to tell him that he's too hot to wear all that. That's a good point. So Gary says, with our new portable speed devices, tells us, please, what is being learned from the data. So Gary, we haven't crunched any of the data yet. I'll just be honest. We've had a lot of events that we're working in town, a lot between the robberies and then actually doing the enforcement. So we kind of have to balance it out. But we're letting those lie for right now, and we're just trying to get them deployed out there. So we haven't had time to crunch the data. So we'll work on that, and we'll put that up to see if we can't get something on that. So I'll take a note of that. Okay. So Gary, I appreciate that. Thank you. Darcy Sue. Okay. And all right. So good. So how about this? I always feel like if someone tries to send me an email and fish the chief of police, that I should at least share it with all of you, right? And so this was pretty interesting. This one came across my desk today, as a matter of fact. And so I thought this was pretty funny that, let me see if I can get this full screen again. All right, so we'll just do that. So it looks like Mrs. Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary, wanted to let me know that I'm a winner. And so, you can see that Mrs. Janet Yellen sent me this, but if you look closely at the email, and I pulled it out and highlighted it, it actually is not from Janet Yellen. It's from an @gmail.com. So that's the first indicator that this is no good. The second is the person was asking for me to pay fees of $150 so that I could win or get my consignment box worth $15.9 million. So we always talk about 2 things that they're going to try to do to take your money by way of fraud or false pretense. Is they're going to impersonate someone with authority. So this could be Janet Yellen, our Treasury Secretary. They could impersonate me, some of our detectives, IRS, you name it, anybody that they think that they can impersonate that will get you to give them money. The second thing they do is they'll try to create a sense of urgency. So in the email, it was, if you look at it here, look at the message line. We need your urgent reply. Okay. So there, right off the bat, like the bells are going off. And so just pay attention, really read those emails, and make sure you're not a victim of those types of crimes. All right, so let's look at the accidents. We did have a few accidents last week. We had a non-injury collision on the 100 block of Town and Country Drive on the 8th. And then again on the 8th, and this was way out on Caminotas, we had an injury collision on Caminotas area at Rasani Drive. And then on the 12th, we had a non-injury collision on Harts and Linda Mesa. That was right in the intersection of Harts and Linda Mesa there. And that was in the morning on the way to school. That's the one that kind of snarled up traffic there for a bit. On, I believe, both of those, we were able to get Nixle alerts out to let you know that the roadway was closed. I hope those are helpful for people so that you can divert. And the cause of those collisions are still under investigation. All right, so let me see if there's anything else in the chat. Okay. So there were some Facebook posts about some of the accidents, and someone had some comments, and they had said, "Hey, well, let's just throw them up." And this is in no way to disparage this person, although I did block out the name. I think these are very good questions, and the thing is these are questions that get asked of us all the time, and the other one is actually an observation that gets told of us all the time. And so I thought it was important that I think these are kind of universal questions and statements that are made, and I thought it was good to just address them and show them. So the first one is, in response to one of the accidents that was out there, is I think they need to lower the speed limit to 35. That way, people's speed, they will go 45 instead of 70. So I think that's a pretty good observation, right? That's a human behavior observation. The second comment was the police need to set up speed monitors like the San Ramon Police Monitor, Crow Canyon Road. It just seems like no matter how many accidents happen or pedestrians get killed, absolutely nothing is being done. I have never seen a Danville officer along that road. Okay, so I did run the numbers as part of a report we're going to make in about a month to the council. So I'll let this one leak out. But the first 6 months of last year, so 2021 versus the first 6 months of this year, 2022, we've increased our ticket production, so the number of tickets that we've written, by 126%. So that's a pretty significant increase. But let's look at let's tackle the the statement first. I have to do the reverse thing. We'll tackle the statement first, and then I'll go over the question about how speed limits are measured. So let's take a look on our Chiefs page, and there's a link in the description. You can click on it, and there's a lot of information there. Some of the files that are on there is our weekly blotter. That's our calls for service. So you can actually look, and in chronological order, you can see all of our calls for service. So I just pulled out the first day of school in the morning, and this is August 10th. Well, first day for our public schools. So August 10th, 2022. If you look at the first three entries in red, well, actually all of the entries in red are traffic citations or warnings. The ones in blue, those are the ones where we were visiting the elementary schools. So we tried to make an effort on the first day of school to have an officer at every school. Even during that time, we were still out doing traffic enforcement. So we had 3 citations issued on Camino Tass and Sycamore Road in Danville in the morning hours. And then we had 2 citations. Well, you can look at it, but we had some citations over in the Diablo Road area and 1 warning. And then we had another citation that was written on El Pintado Road, and that was all between about 7 in the morning and about 9:15. So in a 2 hour and 15-minute period, we actually had a significant amount of enforcement in that time, all while doing a whole other task of going to our schools and being there for the kids, the parents, and trying to work on the traffic congestion issues. We're very aware that most of our schools have an impacted traffic issue, and so we do try to make it out there to get to those. But we also are still out writing those citations and doing those things for speed. So we are out there and out there specifically in those areas. So the question is, on a roadway, what determines the speed? All right, in the vehicle code, we do have a speed limit, and the speed limit in California is 65 or 55, depending on the type of road and whether or not it's divided. Anything that's less than that, so like Camino Tass is 45, it has to be established by an engineering and traffic survey. And an engineering traffic survey is done by us, the local agency, and it's the considerations are going to be the prevailing speed. So this is the 85th percentile speed, the collision history, and the conditions of the highway and the traffic and roadside that would not be readily apparent to the driver. And Caltrans subscribes to it that the 85th percentile is the single most influential indicator of what speed is safe and reasonable. And that's why they use that speed. So let's actually look at one of our speed surveys. And this one was done about 2 years ago, actually a little less than 2 years ago. And depending on the officer enforcing the speed, they're either good for 5, 7, or 10 years. Our transportation department tries to do them every 5 years so that no matter the training or experience of the officer, these speed limits can be enforced. And so, again, kudos to if you don't think that the transportation manager and his department are doing a fantastic job at keeping us safe, you will find out in this survey right now, because it is absolutely incredible. So let's look at it. So this is for Comunidad Sahara and Sycamore Valley Road. So this is what the top part of a survey looks like. You can see the date up there, and you get the field observer initial, and that was our Majid. So this is the 85th percentile, as determined by this survey, was 49.7 miles an hour, which means that it is within the 5 mile an hour deviation of our 45 mile an hour speed limit signs. So it means that our speed limit signs are valid, that we can enforce them because they fall within the 85th percentile. Now, let's look at, this is what I think is one of the most interesting parts right here. So let's look at the date range that they did, the collision history evaluation. They used a 6-year evaluation period from January of 2014 through December of 2019. So they used the calendar years preceding this survey. In that period, during this stretch of road, which this particular stretch of road is about 7,800 feet long, they had 50 collisions over a 6-year period. That's a collision rate per motor vehicle million million vehicle miles driven. Average is 0.5. The expected collision rate, and this is kind of a weird one, the expected collision rate is based on the roadway, the amount of cars traveled, the length of the roadway. So it is what you can expect based on the factors that are present. The expected collision rate would be 1.98. Ours is 0.539. That's about 28% of what it should be, right? Danville doesn't do should be. Danville doesn't compare itself to others. Danville simply compares ourselves to ourselves. And even though 0.539 would be considered an excellent number, that still to us means that 50 people were in a car accident and 50 people had the potential to either be injured or hurt in some way. So we do take those serious, but I think that's pretty incredible. I think that shows you how low relative to what it could be our accident rate actually is. And if you look, there are some additional numbers on here. The average daily traffic is 28,000 cars. The length is about 7,800 feet. And then one of the next things that you'll see here, and this is what an officer will end up testifying to in court, in addition to the speed for the 85th percentile, is they will talk about the condition of the roadway. And this one is limited access roadway. In other words, there's not a lot of vehicles or, a lot of homes that affront the road. And then there's frequent traffic signals. There's a church, 2 preschools, and 1 elementary school, saying that those would be indicators that would increase the volume of traffic in that particular area. So that is what a traffic survey looks like. We don't arbitrarily set the speeds. We can't say, hey, there's a problem here, let's lower the speed. If we were to put a 25 mile an hour sign out there, it has to be supported by a speed survey. If it's not supported by a speed survey, we can write as many tickets as we want. We'd go to court, they'd all get thrown out. Those are, when you hear the word speed trap, that's actually what a speed trap is by definition. It's lowering the speed limit to a point that it doesn't fall within the 85th percentile, creating a speed trap so that your average person driving will be going well above the speed limit, right? In the comment, the person said, lower it to 35, so that way if they're speeding, they're going 45. Well, we would then be writing tickets for going 45 miles an hour, and those would be invalid tickets at that point. All right, I'm going to check the chat here and see if there's anything else. Okay, so Eric, why is it California and maybe the US don't use average speed cameras, i.e. cameras a couple of miles apart that average sometimes speed, so you can just slow down for each camera? It's effective in Europe. Average speed cameras. Are you talking about like the radar speed signs? And Eric, I have to admit, I'm gonna have to look up specifically what that is, so I can know what that is, because I don't see the average. I've never actually heard that average speed cameras. The one thing that we do is we use those speed signs, and what they'll do is they'll say, speed limit is 45, your speed is 53, slow down. And we know from studies that they have an effect of about 2 to 3 miles per hour of slowing down the average rate of traffic. And we have to kind of assume that if you're going 45 and the sign says 45, you're probably not going to slow down for the sign. So what we believe or hope is that it actually brings down those ones at the ends, right? The ones that are going really fast, that it actually brings them down more, which brings down the average of the whole group. So that is what we use, but I'm going to look that up. And then Lucas says, can Danville issue CCW permits, or does that have to go through the sheriff's office? So Lucas, a couple of things on that. The CCWs are concealed carry weapons permits. The Danville Police Department is actually serviced through the sheriff's office. So I'm a lieutenant with the sheriff's office assigned here as the chief. And so that would be an automatic deferral to the sheriff since he's my boss. And most cities in the county defer that to the sheriff, and the sheriff handles the CCWs. And if you go to, and I'll put a link in the page, but there is, just Google Contra Costa Sheriff CCW, and you'll go to the professional standards page, and that has information on how to apply for that. And then Eric is hopefully clarifying this for me. Such as putting a camera at 680 in Crow Canyon and one at Blackhawk. If your average speed between camera 1 and camera 2 is over 45, ticket. Okay, so I don't know that would be, I don't know that you could actually do that in such a long distance, because you have too many variables in there that could affect the speed. It would be interesting to look at. I'm kind of curious if that's more used on highway where there's not stoplights and stop signs. What I have seen is you've seen not average speed cameras, but instant speed cameras where they will issue tickets. And that's frankly less of a police decision and more of an elected community decision. And I know that was brought up years and years and years ago. They became fairly popular, and then they were really not popular. And this was kind of in the 80s and 90s. And I'm not speaking specifically to Danville, but just from my own knowledge of kind of being in the area. More on highways, less on stop and go. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you said it makes sense. All right, Eric, I appreciate it. Eric, by the way, I love the back and forth, and I hope what that does is encourage people to just throw your questions in the chat. It doesn't have to be on topic. It could be anything that you want, and I'll do my best to answer, or I'll do the research on the back end. All right, so I do have a couple more things for you real quick. Just some quick messages. Download this guide. I hope you have, and this is a great guide. It's the FEMA All Hazards Guide. It'll help you to prepare for an emergency and stay safe during one. And then if you can also sign up for our community warning alerts and our community warning system alerts. We talked about Zonehaven earlier, kind of impromptu. If we're going to do it, this is going to be the quickest way we're going to get information out to you. And then also download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. It's got tips, and we actually covered a whole series back in May. So if you want to check out May, you can look and see that there's a bunch of topics specific to that. But it covers like how to keep your home area protected, how to clear it out, how to have go bags and those sort of things to make sure that you're ready should an emergency occur. Go and log on to our local roadway safety plan, see if you can tell us where we should improve our traffic safety engineering, and then come join us for our Citizens Academy. This is a lot of fun. This is an in-person Citizens Academy. This will be our second in-person one since the pandemic. Much better in person. We had a lot of fun in the Zoom ones, and it was a good way to keep the program going, but this is going to be in person, 7 weeks, Wednesday nights, 6 to 9. There's a link in the description. All you have to do is fill out the application, send it in to Sergeant Rangham, and we will get you signed up. Looks like there's a late question in here. I want to see if I can get Sue. And by the way, hi, Sue. I have wondered if the flashing speed limit sign on 680 in Crow Canyon is for freeway speed or Crow Canyon. Somewhat confusing where it's located. Okay, I don't actually know which one that is, and I drive that quite a bit. So let me look into that, and I will Crow. And so are you seeing it? Just if you can, I'm going to probably sign off before this, but if you can, on the chat, just let me know, is it when you're on southbound 680 or northbound? And then I'll go check it out or have someone check it out. And we'll see if we can make sure that it's clear. Okay, northbound. Sue, you're quick. Okay, we'll have someone check northbound 680 at Crow and check on that speed sign that you're talking about. All right, that looks like it's it for the night. We are 10:10, which means we're off duty for the night, but we're always 10:8 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville. Bye-bye.